Listen to me very carefully because what I'm about to say may save you decades of frustration, stress, and very expensive mistakes. I get asked this question everywhere. Airports, restaurants, elevators, sometimes even in places where people really shouldn't be thinking about money. Kevin, they say, usually with a hopeful look in their eyes, should I invest first, or should I pay off my debt? It sounds like a smart question. It feels responsible. It feels grown up. And yet, for most people, it's the exact question that quietly ruins their financial future. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Almost everyone asks this at the wrong time. They ask it when they're already buried under credit cards, car payments, student loans, and a lifestyle they can barely afford. And instead of fixing the leak, they start dreaming about returns, portfolios, and the next big opportunity. That's not ambition. That's denial with a spreadsheet. Let me be blunt. This mistake doesn't cost you a few months. It doesn't even cost you a few years. It costs you decades. I've watched people make good money their entire lives and still end up stressed, stuck and angry at the world, all because they made the wrong decision at this exact fork in the road. You think you're choosing between two good options? You're not. You're choosing a direction. One path compounds freedom, the other quietly compounds regret. And the worst part, once you go down the wrong path, everything you do afterward feels harder. You invest more stress, more work, and somehow end up with less. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while someone else controls the button. So, before we talk about stocks or real estate or any shiny object with a promise attached to it, we need to expose the truth most people don't want to hear. Because if you get this step wrong, everything that comes after it is basically financial theater. Entertaining, maybe, but going absolutely nowhere. Now let me hold up a mirror because this is where things get uncomfortable. I want you to picture your real financial life, not the version you talk about at dinner parties or type into budgeting apps to feel productive. I'm talking about the numbers that actually show up every month. The credit card balance that never seems to go down. The car payment that quietly eats a chunk of your paycheck. The student loan that follows you around like a bad roommate who never pays rent. And yet somehow, in the middle of all that, you're watching videos about stocks. You're scrolling past charts. You're hearing people talk about crypto real estate, passive income, financial freedom by 35. You nod along. You feel inspired. Maybe you even feel smart. After all, you're thinking about investing, right? Let me say this gently but clearly. That's not investing. That's fantasizing with interest charges attached. I've seen this movie thousands of times. People tell me, Kevin, I'm serious about building wealth. Then I ask a simple question. What's your credit card interest rate? And suddenly, the room gets very quiet. Eyes look down, phones come out, excuses start warming up. That's when I know exactly where they are. You're not behind because you're lazy. You're not behind because you don't earn enough. You're behind because you're trying to build a future while dragging the past behind you like an anchor. And every time you click on another investment video instead of looking at your debt statement, you're not being hopeful, you're being avoidant. Here's the harsh part, and I say this because I want you to win. Watching investment content while drowning in high-interest debt doesn't make you an investor. It makes you a debtor who's bored. It's financial procrastination dressed up as ambition. Very stylish, very popular, very expensive. So ask yourself this honestly, no lies, no filters. Are you actually positioning yourself to grow wealth, or are you just trying to distract yourself from a problem you don't want to face yet? Because until you answer that question truthfully, nothing else we talk about will matter. Now we need to get something straight, because this is where most people completely lose the plot. A debtor and an investor are not the same thing. They don't think the same way. They don't live the same way. And they absolutely do not win the same way. An investor has money working for them. Their dollars go out into the world and come back with friends. That's the job. A debtor, on the other hand, is working for their past. Every paycheck shows up, takes one look at old decisions and starts apologizing. You're not moving forward. You're cleaning up yesterday. Big difference. Here's where people fool themselves. They say, Kevin, I'm investing. And I say, no, you're not. You're borrowing at a higher rate than you're earning. That's not investing. That's financial moonwalking. It looks like motion, but you're not going anywhere. Let's talk numbers, because numbers don't care about your motivation. If you have $10,000 sitting on a credit card at 18%, that debt is growing whether you pay attention to it or not. Every single day, it's quietly charging you rent. Now you take that same $10,000 and you put it into the stock market. You do everything right. You're disciplined. You're patient. You're lucky. Maybe you make 8 or 10% in a good year. Congratulations. While you're celebrating that gain, your debt just took a bigger bite out of you than your investment gave back. So, what actually happened? You worked harder, stressed more, and ended up poorer. That's not strategy. That's self-sabotage with extra steps. This is why I say very clearly, and I don't apologize for it, if you're carrying high-interest debt, you are not an investor yet. You're a debtor in training, pretending the math will be kinder to you than it's been to everyone else in history. Spoiler alert, it won't. I know this sounds harsh. People don't like being told they're moving backward while they feel busy. But wealth doesn't care how busy you feel. It only responds to direction. And when your interest rates are upside down, every dollar you invest is swimming against a current that never gets tired. So understand this principle because it governs everything that comes next. You cannot outinvest bad debt. You can't hustle past it. You can't manifest your way around it. Until that drag is gone, every step you take forward is secretly pulling you back. And once you see that clearly, there's really no arguing with it. Let me give you a picture because once you see this, you won't be able to unsee it. Imagine you're standing in a bathroom trying to fill a bathtub. You turn on the faucet full blast. Water is pouring in. You're feeling productive. You're doing something. But the drain is wide open. The water just keeps rushing out as fast as it comes in. Now tell me something, would you stand there proudly saying, "Look at me, I'm filling the tub"? Of course not. You'd look insane. That's exactly what investing looks like when you're carrying high-interest debt. The money you put in is real, the effort is real, the intention is real, but the drain never stops pulling. Every dollar you invest is fighting an invisible force that doesn't care how optimistic you are. That force is interest, and it works 24 hours a day without complaining. Debt is friction. It's like driving with the parking brake slightly on. You can still move, sure. The engine's working harder, the noise is louder, and you're burning fuel faster, but you're not going as far as you think. And here's the cruel part, you get used to the resistance. You start thinking that struggle is normal, that money is always supposed to feel tight, that stress is just part of adult life. It's not. It's a sign something is dragging you down. Now, people always ask me, why didn't anyone teach us this? And I'll tell you why. Because no one makes money teaching you how to avoid interest. The system is very happy when you don't understand this. Schools teach you how to calculate interest, not how to escape it. Big difference. Once you understand this principle, money stops feeling mysterious. It stops feeling like magic or luck or timing. It becomes physics. Direction matters. Drag matters. And until you close the drain, until you release that brake, no amount of pouring, hustling, or hoping is going to get you where you want to go. Now, before anyone accuses me of being anti-debt, anti-risk, or secretly living in a bunker with cash under the mattress, let me slow this down and bring some clarity. Debt itself is not evil. That's lazy thinking. Debt is a tool, and like any tool, it can build something useful or take your fingers off if you don't know what you're doing. Here's where most people go wrong. They lump all debt into one emotional pile and either panic or justify everything. Neither is intelligent. There is a massive difference between debt that quietly destroys your future and debt that helps you build one. Consumer debt is the dangerous stuff. Credit cards for dinners you don't remember and clothes you don't need. Car loans for vehicles that lose value the moment you drive them off the lot. Personal loans for vacations that lasted a week but will be haunting your bank account for years. This kind of debt doesn't create anything. It doesn't grow. It doesn't produce. It just takes, over and over again. And the interest rates, they're not accidents. They're penalties for impatience. Now compare that to investment debt. This is where nuance matters and where smart people separate themselves from emotional ones. A mortgage on a property that generates rental income is not the same thing as a maxed-out credit card. A business loan that helps you increase revenue is not the same thing as financing a lifestyle you can't afford. Even education, if it genuinely increases your earning power, can be considered investment debt when it's done thoughtfully. The difference isn't the label, it's the direction of cash flow. I don't care how respectable the debt sounds at a cocktail party. I care about whether it puts money into your pocket or quietly siphons it out. If the debt feeds you, grows you, and strengthens your position over time, it deserves a conversation. If it drains you while promising nothing in return, it deserves elimination. This is where extremists on both sides get it wrong. One side says all debt is poison. The other side says debt doesn't matter as long as you believe in yourself. Both are nonsense. The real question is simple and brutally honest. Does this debt make you stronger, or does it make you dependent? And let me add this because it matters. Most people convince themselves they're using investment debt when they're really just dressing up consumer debt in nicer language. If the asset doesn't generate income, reduce expenses, or increase your earning power, it's not an investment. It's a purchase with an ego attached. When you stop arguing about debt emotionally and start judging it by cash flow, everything gets clearer. You stop defending bad decisions. You stop copying what looks impressive. And you start using money the way it was meant to be used, as a tool that works for you, not a leash that pulls you backward. Now we're going to draw a hard line, because without rules, money turns into a debate club. And I don't do debates with math. There is a point where discussion ends and discipline begins, and this is it. If you are carrying high-interest debt, anything north of 8, maybe 10%, you do not invest. Period. No exceptions, no clever stories, no. But I heard about this one opportunity. That interest rate is a financial alarm siren, and if you ignore it, it will drown out every return you think you're making. People love to tell me, Kevin, I can beat that with investing. No, you can't. Not consistently, not safely, and not without lying to yourself a little. Paying off an 18% credit card is not boring. It is an 18% guaranteed return with zero risk. Show me a legal investment that does that every year without fail, and I'll invest in it myself. It doesn't exist. This is where fantasies fall apart. There is no hot stock, no clever trade, no inside tip that magically outruns bad debt over time. Markets move, returns fluctuate. Your credit card company, on the other hand, is relentless. It doesn't take days off. It doesn't care how confident you feel. It just keeps charging. So when you choose to invest while carrying high-interest debt, you're not being brave. You're being optimistic in a way that's mathematically irresponsible. That's not strategy. That's hoping the universe cuts you a break. The universe does not offer discounts on interest. Here's the rule I want burned into your brain. If your debt costs more than a reasonable long-term investment can realistically earn, your only move is to kill that debt. Aggressively, ruthlessly, without negotiation. Every dollar you throw at it is a dollar that stops bleeding tomorrow. Once that drag is gone, investing becomes powerful, clean, efficient. But until then, every dollar you invest is secretly fighting an enemy you refuse to face. And that's not a game you win by pretending the rules don't apply to you. All right, now we stop talking philosophy and we start talking execution, because insight without action is just entertainment. And I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to get you out of trouble. Here's what actually works, and it's not sexy. It's not complicated. And that's exactly why people avoid it. You start by facing everything you owe, not guessing, not rounding down. You write it all out. Every credit card, every personal loan, every balance you've been pretending isn't that bad. This is the moment most people want to quit, because clarity hurts more than confusion. Confusion lets you hide. Clarity demands action. Once it's all on the table, you don't attack randomly. You don't try to be fair. You go after the most dangerous enemy first, the highest interest rate. That debt is bleeding you the fastest, so that's where your firepower goes. Everything else gets the minimum it needs to stay alive, and nothing more. All your extra money goes to destroying that one balance. Bonuses, tax refunds, side income, every spare dollar. You don't negotiate with it, you suffocate it. Now, this is where reality kicks in. This process will ask you to change your lifestyle, and people hate that part. Suddenly the dinners out don't feel so innocent. The subscriptions you forgot about start looking suspicious. That car you deserve becomes a monthly reminder of impatience. And yes, it's uncomfortable. That's the point. If it were comfortable, you wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. There will be temptation. Every time the market goes up, every time someone brags about a winning trade, every time a headline screams opportunity, you'll feel like you're missing out. You'll think, just a little investment won't hurt. That's the voice that keeps people stuck for decades. Ignore it. You're not missing out. You're buying back your future. Progress at first feels slow, painfully slow. You'll make payments and feel like nothing's changing, but something is changing. The interest drag is weakening, the pressure is easing, and then one day a balance disappears. That moment is electric, not because you're rich, but because you're lighter, stronger, in control. Then you move to the next highest interest debt and repeat. Same discipline, same focus, no celebrating with new purchases, no rewarding yourself with another obligation. Freedom doesn't come from treats. It comes from consistency. And here's the magic part most people never reach. When the debt is gone, the habit remains. The discipline remains. The money you were throwing at your past is now available for your future. Investing suddenly works the way it's supposed to because there's no enemy quietly undoing your progress. This is not easy. It's not fast. But it is reliable. And in money, reliability beats excitement every single time. Now, before anyone says, Kevin, what about my mortgage? Yes, let's talk about that, because this is where life shows up and spreadsheets start to sweat. Not all debt lives in the same emotional zip code. If your mortgage is sitting below 4%, that's a very different conversation than a credit card charging you 18%. Low-interest mortgages can make sense to carry while you invest, especially if your income is stable and your investments are boring diversified and built for the long term. On the other hand, if that mortgage is north of 6%, the math starts to look a lot less friendly, and paying it down aggressively becomes a serious option again. But here's the part most people ignore, and it matters more than they want to admit. Debt isn't just math. It's psychology. I've seen people make the correct decision on paper and still lose sleep every night. Debt changes how you think, how you argue with your spouse, how you take risks at work. If you're lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, thinking about payments that cost doesn't show up on a spreadsheet, but it's very real. Some people can carry debt calmly. Many can't. And there's no prize for suffering just because the math says you should. Money is supposed to support your life, not quietly poison it. If paying off debt gives you peace, clarity, and better relationships that return may be worth more than any extra percentage point you'd earn investing. Here's the truth I want you to walk away with. The moment the bad debt is gone, everything changes. Your money stops running backward and finally starts working for you. The discipline you built fighting debt doesn't disappear, it becomes your greatest advantage. Investing after debt isn't slower, it's faster, cleaner, and far more powerful. That's when compounding actually works, instead of fighting you. Freedom doesn't come from one lucky trade or some flashy opportunity. It comes from getting the foundation right and refusing to build on quicksand. Do that, And you don't just become an investor. You become someone money finally works for instead of against.